the cup and the league all to be won. Everyone knows there's a job to be done, and with a team so fine, I'm proud they're mine. We'll be singing this song. For real bars from Birmingham Athletic, and now we are on song. For real bars from Birmingham Athletic, and we'll go marching on.
The Dunfermline Athletic Former Players Association podcast is sponsored by Starnut Apparel. Affordable and stylish clothing born on the terraces. Listeners of this podcast can get 10% off their order by using code PODCAST at the checkout. Just head to www.starnutapparel.co.uk.
Welcome to a journey down memory lane that's sure to ignite your passion for the club we all adore. This is Walking Down the Holbeath Road, the podcast that reunites us with the legends who graced the pitch at East End Park. I'm your host, Mikey Mokkiewicz, and I invite you to lace up your virtual boots as we step onto the hallowed turf of Dunfermline Athletics history. This podcast is your ultimate destination for all things Dunfermline Athletic former players, and we'll be sitting down with the heroes who made dreams come true, scored unforgettable goals, and carved their names into the hearts of us Pars supporters. Each episode will deep dive into the stories that shaped their careers, from the early days to the highs and lows of football, from promotion battles to cup triumphs. These players have witnessed it all, and now they're ready to share their memories, the dressing room tales, and insider insights with you. In this latest episode, we speak to former captain Callum Morris, who had 2 spells at the football club. Callum started his career at his boyhood heroes Newcastle United, before joining Dunfermline in 2012 when he was signed by then-manager Jim Jeffries. He later rejoined in 2016 when Alan Johnson brought him back to East End Park and made him club captain. So sit back, relax as we walk down the Holbeath Road with Callum Morris. Right, Callum, great to catch up with you, mate. How's life treating you?
Good, yeah. Nice to see you. Nice to see the pictures in the background there, I know. Showing your support. Very nice. No, good. A lot of change recently, so not playing anymore. Just a bit of a change of track, but no, things have been good. Been able to had a chance to go to a couple of Dunfermline games this season.
Brilliant, mate. And I'm right in saying you're back staying in Scotland now, aren't you? You're up in Dundee.
Yeah, back. Yeah, so my wife's from Dundee. So when my daughter was born earlier this year, we decided that we'd move back up, and then she's got more support. All her family and friends are up here and stuff, so it was easier for her to with the baby and all that kind of thing, and having people close by and everything. So we've moved back up. But to be fair, it's not a big deal to me. I quite like it up here. I've got plenty of friends and little bits of family and myself up here. Yeah, it's been good. It's been nice being back.
Perfect. Right, we'll start at the very beginning, mate. So you were born in February 1990. So what was early life like for a young Callum Morris growing up in Newcastle?
It was brilliant. I suppose my mum and dad aren't from Newcastle, so it's not like I was born into like a massive Geordie stronghold of a house watching Newcastle every week. So I remember going to my first game when I was probably 6, and I think it was Rude Hullet's first game, Kenyon James's. That was my first taste that my dad took us, and I don't think I went back for years and years after that, and probably until I was in high school. But we're quite a nice suburb of Newcastle where we were, so it was quite. I had all my friends and mates around me, all went to the same school, that kind of thing. But then when I was 7, we moved, which is where my dad's from, but all my mother's family are from as well. One of my other brothers was born there, so like there was a lot of change then as well. So it's probably still been in good stead for my football career, because I've been here, there, and everywhere, and every couple of years moving, and different club, a different city, different people. But I think that's part of life. Actually, I think all those experiences are what you need to go and do. And then after that, back to Newcastle, and then I was there until probably I was about 20, 21 was when I kind of the first time moved away from Newcastle. So, no, it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing now looking at the city, and what's happened just with a bit of investment in the football club. The city's got new levels of anticipation, excitement. Champions League football's back, all that kind of thing. So it's buzzing, to be fair, and you can kind of, it's palpable to see. You can feel it when you're just walking about, and the buzz, just, it's crazy how much it means to people. Which is a lot similar to Finland, actually, after what the club went through when I was there the first time and stuff. So the similarities. But no, it was a nice place to grow up. It's always changing every time I go back. It's a different place. So it's a nice place to call home, but it's actually quite nice visiting rather than living. It's nice everyone makes an effort when you visit. So it's it's a nice place to have grown up.
Going back to those early days at watching Newcastle, who was your heroes? And what game? Is there any games that you can remember watching as a kid?
Well, when the first kind of, under Sir Bobby Robson, me and one of my best mate, we used to go all the Champions League games. He went all the away games, but we went to all the home games. So there was some big games. I always remember it would be Juventus 1-0 and Andy Griffin scored. I don't know if many people can remember Andy Griffin, the right back, but he scored an absolute banger from outside the box. That was a big game, but it was almost, it becomes the norm. They were challenging for the Premier League in the top four all the time, like the old top four, so to speak. Champions League football and European football all the time, and then obviously from then on it was a bit of a roller coaster. But I don't know. I don't think there was any. I mean, you can't look much further than Shearer, can you really? Mm-hmm. I always remember as a kid at Newcastle, the PFA used to send people out, and the big thing was like, who would you look up to in the football club in your position? And I always remember the PFA rep being like, hey, you don't really have anyone at centre back to look up to, so you're better off looking at a different club. It's a little bit harsh, but Titus Bramble and people playing at the time, and they were good players. But yeah, I think you won't get many people in Newcastle that look past Shearer, Nobby Solano, people like that.
Especially as a local boy, Newcastle fans love like locals making it, like your Gazas and Chrissy Waddles and all that as well.
Yeah, it's massive, I think. Yeah, you always need a few. You need even like look at Dan Burn now.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like no one had even heard. Like I bet half Newcastle fans didn't know Dan Burn was from Blythe, just outside Newcastle, until we signed him, and they're like, "Oh right, yeah, he's a Geordie." So it does make a big difference, and I think they know what the fans expect and the passion of it. I know everyone, it's nowadays social media and stuff. It's easy to see, isn't it? But if you've got someone there who's lived it, it makes a big difference, and then people buy into it. Like you look at the lads we've got now, Brugge, Moraes and Joel, and people, they love it. Well, from the outside looking in, it looks like they love it anyway. The passion, that kind of connects the football club to the fan base, which is really true.
Yeah, and what was your kind of early journey playing like youth football, and then obviously that you join your boyhood heroes eventually. So what was kind of that pathway for you?
So to be fair, I used to play rugby,
right?
And which you could probably tell sometimes when you see try and tackle people. But I used to play with a lad who played for football to a local team, and he was one of my best mates, and he said it was like a bet at school. He said, "I bet you wouldn't come to football training." I said, "I bet I would." So anyway, I ended up going and signed for a team called Walker Central, it's quite a big boys club in Newcastle, but it's not like the dominant. It's not like the Walls End, the famous ones with all the big hitters who like the Shearers and people that have come through. But we turned out to have a really good team. So we had half the team probably signed for Newcastle and other places. But I never really wanted to go. I loved playing boys club football, so I kind of put it off, and then there was other clubs interested, and then Newcastle were like, well, we can't really hold on because this is like 2 years. You kind of said, you want to keep playing and whatever, and so I think I was like 14, made the decision, right, well, we'll go and sign. So there was me and a few others who I'd play with the boys club all signed at the same time, and at first I hated it because even at that age, it's not exactly pressures, but there's the expectations more. Like they expect you to be able to do more technically and tactically, and they're probably at that age when you're just about to kind of go full time. they're probably testing you as well to make sure if you're going to go full time, you're ready. But luckily, my youth team at Newcastle at that time, we were like unbeaten one season, so like we had a really, really strong team, and the club thankfully kept the majority of it together, which was nice to consolidate going from like schoolboy into full time kind of youth team. So there was some really good players, and then it was nice to kind of go on the journey a bit with them. And we were quite lucky that they'd be going through a bit of a transition at the time at the club. So like the reserve manager changing stuff. So a lot of us who went in at full time at 16 in the academy then jumped straight up into the reserve, so into the first team, like training ground at 17, which was amazing because you were around, like big international players like the Michael Owens and Nicky Butts and people like that on a daily basis.
Was
so you learn a lot more.
Was that quite surreal? Or as a young lad, you just kind of take that for granted? It's just like, this is just my life.
It was, it's
you'd go into training and like
there.
Michael Owen walks past you, like you just thinking, it's fine. It's like, that's just Michael Owen.
I think it is. You're a bit like, I suppose it depends who you, when you're in there, it's normalised because they're like normal blokes and they're all like, there might be one or two who are like on great. Most of them have all been there and they're really good. It's helping you and they'll all come and chat to you, and when you train they'll help you out because they can tell, if you're going at 16, 17 and these lads are playing like World Cups, they know that you need a little bit of leeway. But when I would then go home, I'd go meet my mates, they'd be like, wow, like, and then you get like the fans' perspective on it, and you're like, yeah, that is pretty cool. Like I've just sat and done head tennis with Michael Owen and Joey Barton or whatever, and then my mate, that's get shit, do this, So when that's kind of that thing where it kind of being from the city and being a fan and then actually playing and working at the club kind of all aligns, and there's so many different kind of emotions that go along with it, but it does become normal, I think.
I suppose though, because you're a local boy and you're a fan, it must have been quite hard to switch off, like you were saying, like your friends are constantly in your ear about it, you just can't like escape it. Was that quite difficult?
It is and it isn't, but when I look back on it, as much as I loved my time at Newcastle, you think, would I have been better going to one of those other clubs that I could have signed for? And then you're completely out of like, not the fishbowl, because I wasn't really like I wasn't like a big star or anything, so it's hard for them. But taking yourself out of like the environment of everything being there on your doorstep, and like you're playing for the club, and you just love having a badge on your chest and sitting you there, it would have been more beneficial if I'd gone like a Celtic or an Everton or wherever else, and being like someone from outside the area and being taken out of the comfort zone. So I don't know, that I wouldn't change it, but there's obviously this sliding door moments where it could have been a bit different. But I loved every minute of it. And the people you meet and being able to like play for the club with a load of mates that I played with from like 14 up to some of them till I left at like 2021. It was amazing. But yeah, it's a tricky one, especially on a match day when if you're in the squad, you're kind of around it, so you're in that kind of game day mindset. But if you're not, you're like, I would just sit in the stand with my mates because you all got a few tickets, so I'd be sitting in the stand, so they'd be like screaming and bawling at the players, and I'm like, I can't really do that. But it was amazing, like it just goes past so quickly. And you look back now, like you thought I was there for a lifetime, but I was only there for, I don't know, like 8 years or whatever it was. But it was amazing.
See, in 2008, I was reading a press article, and your coach, Adam Sadler, had touted you and a couple of other boys as like the next big thing to break through. Did that add a bit of pressure on you as a young lad?
You didn't, like, I didn't see any of this. Social media and stuff wasn't big then, and like if it went in the paper, I didn't bother with it. So a lot of that stuff I've only seen when people have brought it up, or like maybe like family members, you'd be like, oh, look what's in the paper, or they're setting you there. So I don't know, it's weird, like it's kind of that kind of imposter syndrome thing. Like I never really thought I was part of the first team or anything like that, or I was more of like I enjoyed my time and playing in the reserves and that, but I kind of knew that I wouldn't play in that first team. And I suppose what teams do now is that they do well to get players into different clubs when they're going to leave. Like you looked at some of the lads who maybe my age, there wasn't that many, but there's a couple of kind of foreign lads that brought in, and at my position, one of them especially was really good, great lad. He was a really good player, and you'd be like, well, I mean, I'm just been knocked back down the pecking order again, and then I had a couple of injury things when I was meant to make my debut, and that kind of knocked me back and stuff as well. So, yeah, I don't think any of that kind of stuff, as much as today, I mean, it's like it blows up, doesn't it? So these players are like, as soon as you open a phone, they'll see it everywhere, the next big thing. And you've seen so many of them, like, probably because of that. So, in a way, you're quite sheltered from it, which is probably beneficial. You could just go in and train and get on with your work, and you'd only hear it if the coach said it to you, and they'd say it in a manner which probably wouldn't be misleading or to your career, I suppose.
Yeah. And during your time there, Kevin Keegan returned to the club. What was Kevin Keegan like? Did you have much dealings with him?
My only friendly appearance to the club was under Kevin Keegan, so that was amazing. So I remember when he came in, him and Terry McDermott, the first pre-season, anyone who was under the age, it wasn't like if you weren't in the first team proper, but you were up with the first team, we were allowed to go in a week before the rest of the first team for pre-season to make sure we were all up to like fit enough to compete with the first team. But little things like that, like other coaches maybe at the time probably wouldn't have thought of that. So we came in and we hit the ground running when the first team came in and stuff. So he gave us all a right chance to progress. But I mean, we had some big hitters at that point, and then there was a lot of turmoil. That was when they had the boycott when we won the championship. We played against Coventry, I think, at St James's, and there was like 27,000 there. There's like 25,000 people boycotted the game and stuff. So it was crazy that time. But even still, I think us in the reserve team at the time, although we're in the same training ground, like even then you were sheltered from, I can't remember ever hearing like whispers of, when you change room now, you're a bit older, like people talk and you hear whispers of what's going on. I can't, unless I just switched off from it, I can't remember any of like hearing things. I just remember going in and going, brilliant. I mean, again, today, go and train, go to the gym, do all my stuff and just loving it. Which maybe was a bit naive as well at the same time. Maybe, you look at some players now who go and captain clubs at 18, 19 or whatever. They're probably more in tune with, they're probably a little bit more mature in that sense that they realise it's bigger than just going in and train. You've got to understand the dynamics of the club and maybe the politics a little bit, and maybe pick the first team players a bit more than I did and others did maybe. So, but no, Keegan was brilliant. I just remember never take boots off. Like you'd go in the canteen after training for lunch and he'd still be wearing his boots, like walking around having his lunch and all that, little things like that. He was just like football daft and just played I remember them playing head tennis non-stop. But they were from that era. They were from like the boot room kind of thing at Anfield and stuff with him and Terry Mack and stuff. But they were great blokes. They were tough at the same time. Like I remember a bit like a senior cup game, when you play like Stumfield play Burnt Island Sheffield, and we got off a team, and he had us all in a meeting. And the first team manager, he obviously came in, and he went absolutely mental. And like after, when you sit back, you think that's pretty amazing of him to come in and give us a bollock. And really, because some of them would have just looked, well, none of them are good enough, I wasn't going to bother with them. But he came in and he, as much as we got like a rocket, it showed that he cared about, because at his first reserves and everything, he chucked it off. So obviously, maybe he probably wasn't allowed to do that at the time, but he'd obviously changed his mind on youth development stuff by that point.
Brilliant. And during that time, you were picked to play for Republic of Ireland. So I think it was at under 21 level you played. So how did all that come about? Like, where was the Irish connection for you?
So when I first went full time, like you all filled out like a form thing of what in that teams you could potentially play for, and the club would then go out and contact them and say. So I could have played for like England, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland. So I ended up picking the Republic of Ireland. My dad's from West Belfast, and then my mum's whole family's from Waterford. So it was a natural kind of path to take. So nothing really happened with it at the time, and I remember getting, I think it was under 17s, but I had all sorts of injuries. It's probably been a story of my career, but when I was that age, grown and all that kind of thing, so I had like stress fractures in the back, and so I missed out on a full campaign. And at the time you think, oh no, I'm never going to get back in. But then I got called up to the 19s, which was amazing. It's like another it opens your eyes to another world. I remember it's the same thing I was saying about being sheltered. Like in Newcastle, I was probably getting like 90 quid a week or whatever. And to be fair, you don't even, not about the money in the slightest. And then I went away with Ireland. We had these lads who get like Chelsea, not getting like 5, 8, 9, 10 grand a week at like 18. I was like, this is crazy. They were really good players, but I suppose that's the thing when you're signing players, when you're trying to lure a player from, who's got options, we're just throwing money at them, and a lot of them, to be fair, some did all right, and a lot of them you probably never heard of again, which was quite sad. But it was an amazing experience going away and traveling around Europe to different places and different cities you'd never would have gone to, like Georgia and Armenia and parts of Turkey and Russia and all these places that you'd never would have seen otherwise. And it was a whole new level of football as well, especially not as much, the team I was playing in, but the teams you play against. It was like something you weren't really exposed to playing in youth football in England, especially. Everyone was quite similar at the time. It wasn't like it is now, where like Guardiola's and people have come in and it's the way you play football. That probably helped me a lot actually when I came back, and it gives you a big confidence boost when you come back to the club when you've been away. Especially when at the time you could probably just be lost in like the mire of all the youth team. It kind of gives you a little bit of a medal on your chest that you've kind of gone and done something different. You've played in national football, so that was great. And then getting called up the 21s then when I was like 19 or something. Probably the same thing when you kind of plateauing a bit in the youth team and you're not really getting time. We didn't really loan players out, so you couldn't go out really friendlies and reserve games and youth games, and so that was amazing as well. And played with some really good like Seamus Coleman and people like that were in my team. So there were some players who have gone on and hit like the real heights. But again, everyone's so down to earth. I don't know if it was part of the thing culturally with everyone being so friendly and the nature of the Irish players, and but it was amazing. It was used to love you train, play, and you'd look forward to an international window, and you'd be away again, try and playing, and it was a nice thing to do actually, because at that point you don't have any other worries, like no mortgages, and didn't drive at the time. There was none of that stuff. It was just all total football. It was amazing.
Brilliant. And then by 2010, you get released by Newcastle. So what was that experience like? Was that really tough? Obviously, being a local boy and a supporter.
It was weird. Not really. I remember having they just won the championship again, and I'd spoke. Colin Colwood was on the coach at the time. I remember you just chatting to him, probably a couple of months before I'd left the club, and he was like, "Well." He was obviously, as a first team coach, he desperate to get promoted, and he was like phoning me and another lad saying like, you should be desperate for the club not to go up, because if we don't go up, you've got a chance. But if we go up, we had like Colaccini and people out who were playing for Argentina, playing centre back. It was quite refreshing to have someone who was quite honest, because a lot of coaches wouldn't say that. So I kind of, you have an idea in your mind, and I remember everyone got released, and they left me literally the last week of the season, so nothing had been said to me. So everyone was like, "Oh yeah, you'll be getting a new deal. I've left it so long." And even the first team players, like the younger ones, Stevie Taylors and people like that, were like, "Oh yeah, if you need any help, we negotiate the contract, this, that, and so I had a meeting with Chris Hughton, was the manager at the time, and it was like probably one of the most positive meetings you'll ever have. Yet the outcome was I got released. So I came out of it like full of confidence, because the club, we're going to get something sorted, and it's just you need to go and play games, and attitude was brilliant, and it was all stuff I probably already knew, but it was nice to have it reaffirmed by someone who was like, he just won the championship with Newcastle United. So that day in itself was, it wasn't a shock, because I hadn't understand the situation, and it was really positive, but that very quickly kind of went not south, but a lot of the things that were lined up that were going to happen. I had a couple of clubs I was interested in, this, that, and the other. They'd all just kind of disappeared so quickly, and that's when you see the not the dark side of football, but you see the other side of football. Like it's not straightforward. It's not like the bubble of playing in a Premier League like football club. So it changed really quickly. But that day itself, of, because it's one of the best conversations I've had in football, to be honest.
Did you then, obviously you just mentioned it there, you struggled to get something else, so you end up going to Blythe Spartans very briefly, and then you had the opportunity to join Glenn Hoddle's academy. So how did all that come about, and tell us a little bit about the academy, the kind of structure of that.
Newcastle, I got a phone call to go to Leeds, and they were just winning League One, so back in the Championship. So I went down, trained with them, played, did really well, like, and it was like, right, gonna get a contract and stuff, want to get you in. And then like a couple of days went by, a couple of weeks went by, quiet, and then other things that were happening, because I'd turned down a few different things because this lead thing was meant to be like solid, and nothing happened. And I had an agent who at the time was in like one of those big agencies. That went quiet, kind of pied us off a bit. So I was lost a bit then, and I went to Gateshead, who at the time were in the National League, and I was like, crap, terrible, like didn't get a contract, like I was rubbish. I don't think it would have suited me anyway, and I just didn't have anything on. So Blythe rang. I kind of knew a few lads who were there, and like, just come and play, come enjoy your football, see what happens. But they were part-time, and I'd never done that before. Like the previous season I was playing like international football, and I'd gone into like the National League North, which was like, it's a tough league, really competitive league. But so I went in there, had two like really experienced centre backs in there. So I played right back, and I was like, I'm not doing right back. And then this opportunity came up for this guy. My dad had seen it. I think he'd seen it somewhere that, just you can kind of apply for it, and had to open trials and whatever. So it was more my dad than me, and so we sent it off and stuff. I got a phone call, come down to Bisham Abbey and have like a few trial games. So I went down there, and it was just like lads everywhere. I don't know how many people I had down there. It was crazy. But I went, did really well. So like, I was getting the train back up from London. I got a phone call saying, I want you to come out to Spain. So that's where the academy was, in Jerez, which is like just kind of south of Seville. And I was like, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Like, so flew out, and it's this amazing, like, it's not that, I don't think it's going anymore, but this amazing resort called Monte Castillo. We used to have like the Volvo Masters golf there, and it's like attached to like there's like a Formula One and MotoGP track there, like, so the F1 do all the testing there. So it was like this amazing place. We all had like, it was like 3-4 lads in a villa, and it was like swimming pools, like training pitches on site, food and everything. So it was like going away like on an international camp, but like that was like your full-time gig. It was really good. And you played in Segunda B, I think it was. So it's like the 3rd or 4th tier of Spanish football. So that itself was amazing, because everyone was like, all the Spanish clubs like just hated it. It was like a load of British lads playing for this team. Glenn Hoddle, like just strutting about the place, hated us. So it was like, that's a proper dark arts to football, and play lower league Spanish stuff. They're just so clever, like did all that kind of thing.
What was the quality like at that level?
They were all like, I mean, I don't know how you compare it, but it's one of those things. Like technically, they were all just brilliant, regardless of the level. They might not be, the passes probably wasn't as great, but like there were some good players, because we were playing like against B teams and C teams, like Sevilla C and Cordoba B, like some big Spanish clubs would play against the B teams, so you could, they could drop injured first team players into it and stuff like that. So yeah, it was again, like, I don't know if you really, because as a career, like, was to get to play professional football basically in the UK. So you're always looking ahead. So I don't know if you take time to really process what living in the here and now. You probably don't do that for a lot of your career, because you're always aspiring to do more, to do better. So you probably don't live in the moment enough as you probably should, like in hindsight. Because when you look back, like I said, you talk through it, where we were, who we're playing against, the facilities, all that stuff. It's like, it's unreal. Not many people get that opportunity. So yeah, it was really good. Played with some, like, trying to think here. So like people like Sam Clucas. I think Clucas just signed for Rotherham, but he went on to play in the Premier League for Hull and for Swansea. Jordan Hugill, I think he's at Rotherham as well now. He went to West Ham for like 20 million quid. So there was like some of the lads when it did like really, really well off the back of it, like some real big success stories. But like most things in football, I think there was financial issues more on the football club side than the academy side. And we just one day went for like, we'll have dinner together in the restaurant bit at the hotel, and we're told like, pack your bags, going home tomorrow. And we were like, what?
Wow.
So we all flew back to the UK. So then it was a bit messy from then. So the Spanish club had all the registration, so they had to send like half the lads back to Spain to finish the season. Half of us stayed in the UK and kind of trained in London and played friendlies. So it all got a bit messy from then. I think a few lads got a bit kind of put off by it. It was a bit of a mess. And he got the end of that season. I was like, I'm not like coming back. Like it wasn't really working. We're playing all these games and doing well and stuff. And then there was rumours that they were like demanding like stupid figures from clubs, because I spoke to a few mates in different places, and they were those clubs who were keen on a couple of lads, and they were like, well, we're not paying like 40 grand from some academy out, and like just like mad things. I decided I was going to just, come back to the northeast and reset, and which I did. So I ended up coming back and just kind of I've got a friend who's quite kind of involved in local football, and said, look, if you just put my name around, I'm not bothered about getting paid or anything. I just want to go and play some football. That's when I ended up at Morpeth Town. So it was a weird couple of years leaving Newcastle. Kind of in between, I'd been on trials in I've been in Greece, in Portugal, obviously played in Spain. I've been halfway around Europe playing all these games, which was again, you look back and you think, wow, like that's some experience in the space of 2 years. It might not have been like what I wanted, but I mean, it's all like steps on the path. So, and I went to Morpeth, and at that point, I decided that was me. I'm going to get a job. The guy who owned the club was really successful in oil and gas and renewables. So he'd always said, look, there's a career off the pitch here if you want to do it and stuff. So I was like, I don't think I can go through another trial now and get knocked back and go again and go again and go again. I'd been everywhere, been up down the country, like around Europe. So, and that's when the guy who owned the club, and there was a guy involved in the club who must have known Jim Jeffrey, said, look, kind of close the book. Firm are quite keen for you to come up just for a trial. Just go up. Feel if it doesn't work, then the guys' businesses aren't going anywhere. Morpeth Town aren't going anywhere. Your family aren't going anywhere. So just go and see what it's like. So jump on the train. Well, I not trained on the Monday, played against Livy on the Tuesday, and after the game, I was in Mojo's van, and the jet came off. Was like, right, you coming to East End? And I was like, do you mean I'm coming to East End? He's like, you got to sign a contract. You're not going home. And I was like, as soon as he said those words, it was like, the fire in my belly came back straight away, and I was like, brilliant. It's crazy how it switched so quickly. So I headed down. I think Scotland were playing Holland under 19s or something at East End that night. So away I went and stayed up the rest of the week, trained, kind of got every stuff, went home at the weekend, told them, my family and mates, right, that's me leaving now. They're like, what? I thought you were like staying and get the job. I was like, nope, not anymore. And came back up the following week, and that was me back up for the next 2 years up in Dublin.
What was your first impression?
Which was mad. It just happened so quick. Do you remember training at Petrivi? And I was like, it's hard, isn't it? Because I've been round on all these trials, I'd seen like the worst training grounds in the world, and I'd seen like top tier stuff. So I was like, this is good. Like, you've got your own place. Like you've got your own changing rooms. You've got like a canteen. Like, you've got a kit man who does literally the food, the washing, the driving, all like a kit man does. But your own training pitches, the little AstroTurf. I was like, and weirdly, well, like a lot of don't know now, Alex Whittle was in Spain with me for a little bit. So when I got there, I was like, well, Wits was there. Josh, I was previously at Leeds, so as a young lad, me and Josh played against each other all the way through the age groups. So I knew a few people, and there was obviously a lot of experienced heads there, like Andrew, like Barra and John Potter and Andy Kirk, all these people. So like, it was easy enough to fit in, and they were desperate for a centre back. So the manager was like, "You're gonna play. We don't have anyone else to play." So me and Dowser were gonna play. So it was like, well, why not? It was, you know what I mean? So out on a train, it's like an hour and a half, 2 hours to Newcastle or whatever. And at this point, I was kind of immune to the travel, like, so it didn't really bother me. But and it was good. It was like competitive, like a different competitive, because I've not really been around proper men's first team football like that before. And
How did you find the standard?
It was tough at first because it was more, especially coming from Spain, it was more like impactful physical. Like in Spain they're all like specimens and like they know how to use the body, but this was like forceful, like, and there was a massive thing in like, I remember like the manager and Neil that really wanted us younger lads to be like on the older lads, like to drive that competition. So it was really competitive, but like enjoyably competitive. We used to look like an old v young kind of games and all that kind of stuff every Friday, old v young and all that kind of stuff. It was like brilliant, and it was just like enthused everyone. So it was tough. I always remember, like, I mean, the first game was Montrose, I think, in the League Cup or something on a Wednesday night, which was a decent enough game. But then the Saturday was Wraith at East End, and it was like I'd never played in front of a crowd like that. It was like, I don't know how many was there, 8,000 or something. It was quite full.
Yeah.
And I always remember like jumping. I was like, this is like amazing. It won 3-1. I always remember Brian Graham scoring a crap header. Like I'll tell Brian that. So, but yeah, that was it. Like the bug. Then it was like, this is amazing. Like, and it was that league that year. Obviously, like, at the start of the season, it was like us and Partick and Morton were all like flying at the top, and it was class because you were in and about it all the time. Like every game mattered, every point mattered. We're playing good football. Like, we'd win the majority of games. There was a good balance between like experience and youth, and obviously the manager was brilliant with everyone. To be fair to him, like, he was hard on people and he was like tough and whatever, but he backed all the lads, which was probably credit to him when things kind of went downhill off the pitch. Like, you probably did. There wasn't another manager out there you probably wanted on your side, to be totally honest with you. You'd seen it all, so that was amazing. And after a while, it was like I'd been there forever, sort of thing. Especially being immersed in the city and the town at the time. But living locally and then living with Josh and Alex, it's always helpful having people around you all the time. And yeah, it was amazing. It was like exactly what I needed at that point.
Yeah, everything was kind of flying that season, and then obviously the financial situation kind of happened. What was your memories when all that kind of surfaced and you guys were asked to take pay cuts, and that's kind of when the form started to really slump after that, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, when you look back at it, I mean, thank God it didn't happen when you're older. Like, you look at some now I'm a bit older and I've got like a young family and you've mortgages and whatever else. I couldn't think of how tough that was for the old lads who had like big responsibilities, and that's probably when, not saying blame on the other lads, whatever, but you can for us, we kind of cruise by. Like, we had enough to get by, but some of them like couldn't afford to get into training and stuff like that. It was like it was crazy. But it's the lies, isn't it? Like, it's, if someone's honest with you, you're not going to get this, you're not going to get that. But it was the constant lies, and then obviously you had the manager in the middle of it, you had the senior players in the middle of it. Everyone, like you say, you don't want it to stop because we're doing so well and we're challenging to win the league in a really, really hot league, like competitive league. But yeah, it just kind of got a little bit worse and a little bit worse and a little bit worse. And then I remember we played, I think it was Partick Thistle at home. I think we ended up we got battered in the end, but I think we got like 10% of our wages. And the lads were like, we're not getting on that pitch tomorrow because it was a Friday before the end and no chance. 10% wages. But I always remember Jim Jeffries saying, like, I'll back you all the way, but just play, just keep playing. Like, don't not play. And it was kind of like, we didn't really have much of a say, us young lads. It was the older ones who were really kind of dictating. But then I remember that evening, money dropped in everyone's bank, and I was like, that's even worse. So you didn't pay it, now you suddenly can't pay it. But like, I've never played in a game when you've been beaten convincingly and you got like a stand ovation. Like, that was just like, that sums up Dunfermline as a club and as a town and the people and the community. It was like they carried the team, all the redundancies, and it was like 20, whatever it was, 23 of them. It was like, then Craig Dogg would stay, but Dogg was like a player manager, a player coach, really, in the youth team and stuff. But after that, like, it was like the support was like outrageous. Like you felt like it was a 12th man every game. And some of the young lads, like the thing with football. Some of those young lads might not have had football careers. It wasn't for that, because they went and played every week in that league against good teams and good players, which they might not have ever done. So it's really weird how these things come together. But I still think we should have stayed up that season as well. That was just a nightmare, that last game of the season, Airdrie and all that kind of stuff, and the playoff.
Yeah.
But it was really uplifting. You know, you had, like, you'll know some of the people still involved in the club, and some, especially for us younger ones, and fundraising and all that kind of stuff. It was like, it's sometimes you know, through the adversity comes all this kind of positive stuff. So it was a really, really crazy time, but it was an amazing time in terms of a community coming together to help each other. It was special.
Oh, and it was a good season for you. You got the Player of the Year at the club, and you're also in the PFA Team of the Season. So it was a good one for yourself, a full season of first team football.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I loved every bit of it. It's like the same thing. You just you're on like a bit of a roll on. You're not even thinking, but just enjoying playing every week with good players and a good manager, and like the fans behind you, which made a big thing. We always took a big following, home and away. I think I just settled in. It was like I say, it was probably one of those kind of things that just kind of clicked. It was all probably meant to be that I was there at the club at that point, and they hadn't signed anyone through that full window, and the opportunity came up. So yeah, it was a really, really enjoyable season for me, apart from obviously what happened at the end of it. But it's probably the same for a lot of the younger ones, just playing every week. Like, on a selfish note, was amazing. Like I said, the opportunities probably wouldn't have had. And it was nice, like at the end of the season, because you don't think about these things. I probably didn't even know they existed, to be totally honest. They had these kind of awards and stuff. So it's really nice to get the recognition, especially when it's voted for by your peers as well. It was that was amazing.
We are Flow Digital Pharmacy, and we are proud to sponsor the Walking Down the Holbeath Road podcast. Our easy-to-use app is a convenient way to access your NHS prescription medication, and our team of trained pharmacists are helping thousands of people to access the support and medication they need. If you're registered with a GP who's based in England, you can use the Flow app to securely and conveniently send them NHS medication requests and arrange delivery to a location of your choice at a time that suits you. This means you can avoid the hassle of contacting your GP and making unnecessary round trips to eventually collect your prescription. Find out more at weareflow, spelled PHLO. That's weareflow.com.
Brilliant, mate. And then the following season, I remember that kind of pre-season, there was rumours you were going to leave. There was a few clubs interested. So the following season, there was rumours in the summer that you were not looking to leave, but there was clubs interested and you might leave. So what was your kind of memories of that?
I remember the Airdrie game, last game of the season, I ruptured my hamstring quite badly, and then I played on it, trying to be a hero. The one we got beat 1-0, and so I missed the playoffs, and then the following season I was probably just rehabbing through pre-season. It's the same thing. I didn't really hear. Like, I know there was a couple of people that inquired and stuff, but like, I didn't want to leave. I mean, it's different, some big massive club came in, but I don't remember anyone being like big clubs or anything come in. And it's like, well, why would you leave this? Like, as much as like off the field there's so much adversity, it's on like a massive positive trend, and we've just been through so much together. So I just want to get back playing, and especially like everyone was like, well, we can go and win the league, and it was different with Rangers in the league at the time, but like we had a real chance again. So I don't think that really crossed my mind. I think the only time it probably would have come to anything is if there was a substantial bid and the club could have, for the club, the position they were in, it was probably like, well, we need the money. But I don't think any of the bids were like enough for the club to go, well, that's going to help massively. I think there was a lot of kind of swap stuff and Saturday. So yeah, I don't think you'd ever any traction, to be honest. I think it was just get back fit and get playing.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier, like a lot of the guys, you were really close. It was a good dressing room around about that time, even though we're in League One and the financial issues, but there's a real feel good starting to happen again, with the good players at the club and obviously the fundraising going on.
I think it was even more competitive in training then, because you had like these really young players, had like Finn Graham, some people were like, they would never be a first team at that point, and they were coming in and they were competing. They were like, for at the time being an older one, even though I wasn't an older one, like it was like every day was enjoyable because it was almost like going back to youth team days because it was so young, and like that kind of infectious naivety of just going in and working as hard as you can and listening to everything that the coaching staff are listening to, and there was always that kind of tug on your back, like because we were one of the only full-time teams in the league, but like luckily so we were in the second scalp, so to speak. But it was like you didn't, and at that point the finances had to a point been sorted, so like, you know, you were getting paid, all kind of stuff. I know there was lots going on with the administration, and you know, to be fair, with administration still, you're lucky in football, like the football debt's protected, so you're going to get your money. So we were lucky that the money we didn't get, we were going to get it, just the way I don't know how fair that is. And there was other people who were getting, I don't know if it was 1 pence in the pound or they actually settled on no pence in the pound in the end. So a lot of people lost money, but then a lot of these people didn't turn their back on the club at the same time. So we probably owed a lot to the community and to the people who had helped us, which then gives you the impetus to go and do your stuff on the pitch and do the best you can, because we were kind of showcasing the town at the time. Going through it all, we were kind of the face of it, being on the pitch. And then I think a lot of the community projects that grew, which was amazing, like the Centenary Club, things like that, all kind of grew and grew and grew. And it was probably nice. There was more of a connection between the fans and the club, because they had a tangible effect on kind of dragging the club up. And you knew people personally to speak to by name, which you probably wouldn't. You know, there probably is a bit of a divide there and a bit of a curtain between. At that point, there wasn't. Like, you know, they'd probably gone and given, you know, like they might have had a tenner in the pocket and they've gone and chucked it in a bucket for you to, for your wages or whatever, and who knows what their financial position was. So it was all this stuff of people being so selfless as well to help the club. So it was a positive campaign, apart from again at the end, but it was all kind of built up back to where it is now in a much stronger position.
Yeah, definitely. The end of that season, you kind of mentioned it there, we lost in the playoff final to Cowdenbeath. What was your memories of that kind of time? And it was a proper disappointment, wasn't it?
Yeah. Because I remember we played Stranraer in the semi-final. I was terrible. Like, I remember going down to Stranraer and I was awful, and the manager went mental, and there was all this stuff about, like, it's because I wasn't signing the contract or whatever. And in my head it wasn't, but subconsciously it wasn't. You're only young, but and I didn't play the rest of the playoffs in Bartel. I came on up front at Cowdenbeath, which was like man. But that team, like, you look at it and you think, there's no way we shouldn't have won that playoff. But then it was probably the manner of it, wasn't it? Especially at home when there was so many people, and people would have thought it was a guaranteed, and there was all stuff planned for after the game, and then they scored. Like, you look at it now and can concede dead early, and then we weren't really in the game. It was just really flat. And I think for a lot of the lads, they knew that would be them leaving. There was another transition that next season. So it was a tough one to take, because I probably knew I wouldn't be there the following season, and you want to go out on a high. You want to go and achieve something. Like I say, a lot of it was just to give back to the people who had helped us along the way. You want to be in a position to say thank you and give them some back. So it was very, very flat.
Yeah, and you mentioned it there. You leave that following that summer, and you join Jackie McNamara at Dundee United. So, what was your time up at Tannadice like?
Yeah, it's just it. But my career is eventful, no matter where I go. So, it was amazing. Like, it's the same thing. Like, you walk through the door, and there's all these players you'd seen on sports scene who've been playing up, like, top players, and then you've got all like the young team who have, like, you just read about them in the papers the whole season before, the Andy Robertsons and Ryan Gould, and I think remember it was the first day of pre-season, and I remember walking out with training, and Goldie was walking out, and then he got a call back. Like, you literally stepped foot on the training pitch. Like, no, you go off to sign for Sporting Lisbon. I was like, where have I signed here? So lad signed for Sporting Lisbon. I was like, and then do the full pre-season, and Andy Robertson's playing left back, and I'm left side centre back, and comes in the pre-season, he's off the Hull for millions. I'm like, this is like what place this is. And you had Gary Mackay-Stevens, Stewie Armstrong, and you had some good players. And it was like, it's the same thing. Like, it was quite a relaxed environment. There was obviously that you had to perform and stuff, but the way the manager had it built, it wasn't like it was like pressure all the time. You just went and enjoyed training. You had a good time. You worked on stuff, but it was more about just enjoying it and expressing yourself. And that's obviously why all those lads have gone on to, like Robbo's won everything there is to win. And a really good culture. And again, it was a young team. We had a couple of older heads, the John Rankins and stuff, who kind of, they could police people getting a bit above their station or whatever. But the same thing was the pre-season was amazing. We had a really good pre-season. Then the start of the season went up to the Tawdry and won 3-0 first game of the season. I was like, we're onto something here. Then beat Motherwell, because I think we played the previous season's top three were Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, there's 3 games. Then we beat Motherwell at home, and we're like, we're flying here. Then went to Celtic Park and got beat 5-1, I think it was. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, back to reality.
with a bang. Yeah. So I think it was the first time I played Celtic. I remember coming off the pitch thinking, I've actually played all right there. But they've just scored, like, every time we had a chance to score. I was like, this is like, that's the level there. They were like, how dynamic they were and how strong they were and tactically astute they were. And like, we weren't a bad team. Like, on the ball, we were good. Like, teams didn't want to let us have the ball because we had good footballers. But yeah, no, it was a good season. Last season got the cup final, scored in the derby, which was amazing. Scored at Hampden in the semi-final against Aberdeen, all that kind of stuff. So like, that season was amazing. We're on a really good trajectory, and then obviously all the stuff like signing all the players and taking all like the creativity out of the team, and the tail end of the season wasn't great. We should have finished in the top half and all that kind of stuff, and off the back of it, we didn't really improve the following season, and Jackie was out, and Pat Lining came in again, who was great, to be fair. I enjoyed my time with him. But then they signed some like weird Florence Pongal and Iji Kawashima, like the Japanese keeper, and all these kind of Guy Demel, like big names, like out of nowhere. Probably not what you need in a relegation battle, but so like there was so many highs, and then it just kind of at the end it just kind of pitted out. And again, it was probably one of those things where you just at the club, if you'd been at the club if I'd been there a year earlier, you would have had that amazing season where they got the Scottish Cup final, and then you had another season, we got another final. But then the season after that, it was like a big transition with so many people, all the heads all leaving, all the younger, any value in the team was sold. Yeah. And they needed to rebuild as well. So it was like another crazy 2 years cycle of Scottish football. But I wouldn't I wouldn't change it. These experiences, like I say, when you look back at them, they're priceless, because some people just cruise through their career and it's like, either like mediocrity and just kind of stay in middle of the road, or everything's positive. But I've seen like the high, played in National Stadium and been relegated twice, whatever it is. So it's like, yeah, you do see it all. But it was a great place to play football, like another big club with big fan base and full houses all the time and great facilities and some great people at the club. Some of them are still there now. So it was a crazy 2 years, but again, I wouldn't change it.
Yeah. What was Jackie McNamara like as a manager?
I really liked Jackie, to be fair. He was quite astute with, he wasn't like a screamer and shouter and, going to come in and like rip wallpaper off the walls and stuff. He was just quite quiet, but he would go and, I remember before every game, he would go and take people in like the positions. So like mainly the centre back, he would just come on the change room and like bring you over, I'd go to the flipboard and give you the information on the players you're playing, blah, 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 and it'd be like right back, right wing and whatever, and So he got all the information, but it was a nice way to deliver it. And I think that's probably why he cultivated such a good young team when he was there. Because he gave them enough information, but he didn't shackle them enough. They let them express themselves, and that's probably why a lot of them flourished. And he wasn't scared to chuck players in. Because even when I signed like him, that's a gamble taking lads from League One into the SPL, and then he signed like Blair Spittle from Queen's Park out of nowhere, and a couple of other ones. So I know his mandate was to bring these players through, but I think he did it really well. And then, it was never it's sustainable. That level of success, is it? You mean? You can't constantly have players move into the Premier League and move into like Portugal and move away. That's not going to happen. So, and then football's cut through. You demand success. So if you're struggling, people are going to get rid of you. So, but I really, really enjoy it. Like still speaking now. So he was great, to be fair. I really probably what I needed, that little kind of go and just do what you want to do, kind of go and express yourself, go and play. And it was another step to develop. Probably developed on the ball more than off the ball, which was probably what I needed at that time as well. And so yeah, it was great. It was good just to go in again with someone who had total confidence in you. We're just going to support you regardless of, if you had a bad game, you had a bad game. Just go and learn from it. If you don't learn from it, obviously it's an issue, but if you just go and learn from it and keep playing, developing, then happy days. So I had a really good time with them.
Brilliant, mate. So you made 45 appearances for Dundee United, and then you get the chance to go to Aberdeen. So how did all that come about? And Derek McInnes as well was the man who signed you. So what was he like?
Well, when I left Dunfermline, that was the two clubs who were like, kind of really keen, was Aberdeen and Dundee United. And then, as a transpired, went at United. And then I think Dell had been keen. I always had a bit of an eye since then. And I think quite a lot of the times I played against Aberdeen, I'd done quite well when I was at United. So we were all leaving. I think a lot to kind of just go to the squad at United. A lot of lads would be like, well, I wasn't going to stay anyway. But it's one of those, like, if you get released, you get released. Just over. You know what I mean? So at the time, I can't remember who was speaking to a couple of clubs, and then Dell had got in touch and was like, "We want to bring you up." And I was like, "Well, that's an absolute no-brainer." So up there in the in Europe qualifiers and all that. So it was kind of not out of the blue, but a bit like really like, because off that previous season again, I'd had some bad injuries. I'd missed a lot of football, done my knee, done different things. I was like, that's a bit of a fair play to him for like backing us to go up there and do well. So up I went. But then, to be fair, I did my Achilles in pre-season, so missed the whole of pre-season, missed the whole European campaign. And from then on, I just didn't really get a chance. Obviously didn't make a single appearance. I think I only made the bench away from home. I think I was in the stand every game at Todry when I was there. But it's weird though, because I loved it. Because like,
it wasn't frustrating for you.
It was frustrating, but I kind of everyone's different, but once I got to train, I just parked that and just enjoyed training. And you're playing with it was a different type of squad there, because it was all these like big characters like the Shinies and Kenny McLeans and Ryan Jackson, Adam, like all these players have gone on to do like all sorts in their careers, and they kind of policed it. And it was, everyone, there was like an unwritten kind of thing of the standards that everyone trained at. Like, it wasn't like you had to drive standards, it was just there. Like, if you weren't at it, then you're not meant to be there. So I loved all that. I loved training. The manager himself, like, I haven't got a bad word to say about him. Like, some people be like, "Oh, I didn't play, he's this, that, and the other." But like, on reflection, you look back and think at the time they were doing really well. The centre backs were playing quite well. Like, I'd missed the whole of pre-season. It was probably like the right place, wrong time sort of thing as well, off the back of like getting relegated, missing loads of football. I probably, if I'd gone somewhere else and played even for 6 months a year and then gone up there, I think I would have had a right go at it. It wasn't the, like I say, right place, wrong time sort of thing. But it did come a point where I was like, I need to go and play. Like, I can't just sit here for a full season. Like, it's brilliant. Look, yeah, everything's at Aberdeen, they get well looked after. Nutrition, buses, travel, hotels. The training ground wasn't built then, but they were building the training ground up at Todry, full houses, everything. But like, that all means nothing if you're not playing. So I could have sat there and just like sucked it up for a year or two, and then. But I couldn't. You had to go and play. Like, it does get to a point where, like, I can't keep doing this. Like, as much as I'm desperate just to get an opportunity and take it, I just couldn't see it coming. And then, so again, it was, I told him a few people, and then Potty rang us. He was like, "You coming back?" And I was like, as soon as it was weird, as soon as it was like done filming, I was like, "Yeah, let's get it done. This will be, you know." I don't think I even spoke to the manager at the point. So I was already like, "Yep, we'll go." Go back somewhere I know well, like got a good rapport with like not just people at the club, the fans, the community, everything, and go back and just enjoy it because like, you know, when you, like I say, you step away, it would be in quite a turbulent year or so with different injuries, and then going to Aberdeen and not really panning out, moving again and travelling up from Dundee to Aberdeen and this and that and everything. And so it seemed like out of all the other options, it was like the kind of the perfect one for me. So must have been in the January we got it all sorted, and
I think it was December 2016, mate.
Yeah.
It was just before Christmas.
Yeah, because I think we agreed it, but I had, I know it's stupid, but so basically I was going to be best man at my mate's wedding, but when I signed for Aberdeen because of Europe, I missed his wedding. And I said, I'll never miss anything again for football because obviously what transpires, I didn't play anyway and whatever. So in the international break, I booked because he lives in New York, I booked to go and see him. So then the manager was like, "Well, you obviously got to cancel that." And I was like, "No, I've given him my word now. I can't cancel on his wedding and cancel again for this. So I'm not going to have to go." And Potty was like, "Nah, like, you know what the decision is to be made here." And I was like, "I can't. Like, I've given him my word." So I remember I went off to New York for 6 days, and I can't remember who they played. They'd won. I think the thing was Wraith or something maybe.
Yeah, I think it was Wraith Rovers. It was, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we played well in the game. And then I came back and I was on the bench against, I can't remember who that was. On the bench against? I went with someone.
Was it Livingston?
It might have been. And then I remember I played against Alloa away. That was the first game. And just getting the boots on and going and playing, I was like, yeah. Like, there was this big, like, release, like, all this weight off my shoulders, like, and back playing, and it was like I hadn't been away, sort of thing. It was brilliant.
See, by that time as well, the club obviously had been taken over and everything was kind of on the up. It was like a real feel good around the place again.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but it's like, it's weird. It's like I say, it's like you've never been away, because I'd probably missed that season of, like, I think the previous, maybe like when I'd left, that next season wasn't great either. I think it struggled a bit in League One and stuff. So I'd missed the kind of the second little dip before the rise again. So then you know what I mean? So I'd only really seen like this quite positive bit. And then I went back and it was positive again, so to speak. So I'd missed a bit of a dip, although I'd seen it from a distance. So yeah, it was good to come in and like there was still some familiar faces there. Like there's always the consistent ones, but then there were some new ones. So there was like the makings of quite a decent team. So I don't know how many games I played that season, like at the end. And we'd done well, like went to Easter Road and played well and stuff like that. And then it came to the summer and I had another decision to make. And I remember the manager and Ross McGoffin ringing saying that we want to make a club captain. As soon as I said that, I wasn't bothered about the rest of the conversation. I was like, yep, yeah. I'm in. Like, you know, how it comes full circle, like going in there is like, you know, off the back of nothing, and kind of building reputations on film, and then coming back so many years later and being bestowed as captain was like, that's kind of stuff I like. I love that. So I was like, yeah, sign me up. And you could see like there was enough in the squad, and then we made some good signings. Like Joe would come back. Well, and he was flying that season. Higgy was flying. Nicky Clark was scoring loads of goals. Deck McManus was flying. Big Nat Wedderburn was just like throwing people all over the place. Like we had a good team, like Big Ashy, like look, know, Murdo and goal. Like we had a really good team. And that season, like, you know, we started off on fire and I had a dip, and then we played Inverness at East End. I remember we did that little huddle thing before the game, and it was like we can only change this, like no one else can. And went on that mad run and got the playoffs, and probably should have done a bit better in the playoffs. You know, we missed a couple of chances against United and stuff, and so that was a really enjoyable season, that one, because it was like, again, the club was moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Do you remember as well, that was the Lap of Honour season?
Yeah.
Remembering the guys from the 68 Scottish Cup winning team?
Yeah.
You remember we done the PR launching the club beer? Do you remember that one?
I get sent that photo of me with a pint and like burping and all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's my big hair blowing off in the somewhere into the stand. Yeah, like all that kind of stuff was amazing. That's what I mean. Like there was the connection between everyone. Like previous players being like Roy Barry and not being around all the time, all that kind of stuff. Like it was you could walk through the lounges and all that and speak to so many people, and everyone was so accessible because you were like, why wouldn't you be? What's it to be scared of? Like everyone's in it for the same reason. So, it was good. And then there was even stuff off the pitch. Remember we did it was like healthy eating thing in all the schools. We go into the schools and all that stuff, and I think they won like national recognition for that and all that. That stuff meant a lot to the squad as well because it was, like I say, giving back. And I think some of the younger players might have on loan probably weren't used to that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
but I think it become a more well-rounded person, not just a player, by doing all that stuff in the community. And you see what it means to other people when you go and do it. So like that kind of stuff we did so much stuff that season. It was brilliant.
Do you remember the trip we had to McDonald's as well? Done a wee bit of PR with McDonald's.
Yeah, I do remember that. Shouldn't have been a McDonald's, but yeah, I do remember up at the retail park one.
Yeah. Again, though, because everything was on the up, like McDonald's and Volkswagen specialised cars, all these big brands were wanting to get involved with the club again. It was great. It
just shows you, doesn't it? Everyone wants to jump on positivity, and rightly so. I do remember that because they were doing the man of the match. I've always remembered Joe like looking, okay, could get a free car out of this. I don't think it's that. It is the heartbeat of the city now. So, like, why not? Why wouldn't you want to be involved in it?
Totally.
So yeah, it was good. Like, because we're doing stuff all the time. Like, pretty much after training every other day, we were out doing something, meeting someone, and so yeah, it was really good.
Yeah, made you work for your money that season.
Yeah, totally. Oh yeah, it was like no days off. When people say no days off, that's what it means.
Brilliant. And you mentioned him earlier, Alan Johnson was the manager that season. How did you get on with Alan? What was he like as a manager?
Yeah, he was different again. Like, I got on with him fine. Like he was like really like focused on, like, he was so good with computers and stuff. And like every Friday you'd get like a Dropbox thing or whatever with like clips of the other team, all the players that you'll be playing against, previous games. Like it was amazing really for the level of that. It was like that's real stuff. That's what like big clubs do. And he was, he'd seen it, he'd been a top player. I mean, he's played top level in France and everything. So yeah, he was good. He was good. The season after was probably tough for him as well. But I think at the time we had such a good group that, a bit like at Aberdeen, it was kind of, you get to a point where the players can police what's going on. You don't have to have a manager like screaming down your neck all the time, because we knew to achieve what we wanted to achieve, you had to have a certain standard. And he had good people around him with Potsy and Sandy Clark and others. So there was a good balance there as well. So yeah, he did well, and he structured the team well considering the players he had to get the most out of them. Because some of them, some people are hard, like a Higgy or whatever. If Higgy's not playing, Higgy's not happy. So it was keeping him in a positive space, because he was arguably probably the best player that season. To be fair, when he was on it, like, he was unplayable. Like, taking goal kicks and kicking on him, he's like not tall in the slightest. He beat anyone in the air and all. He had the bit between his teeth, so that kind of stuff's tough for a manager. So I think he handled all that quite well, and obviously came so close to achieving what the goal was at the start of the season.
Yeah, that was the problem though. After that, the expectations were so high because we got to the playoffs and it was a really good season.
Yeah, I think so. I think people I kind of saw it a little bit. I think I knew other people weren't going to be staying, and you don't want to walk away from the club, but you think, I don't want to be there again where it drops off again, and you've got to try and go, like, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because it's not like you're going to go and contracts aren't there for 2-3 years and you can be on the journey and try and build it. It would be like you might go in, might have a tough season, and where do you stand? It's a hard one. And at the time, I was desperate to get back home and try, well, and all that stuff after the game, and saying that, I had my map upside down and all that stuff with Ross County and stuff. That's just how football pans out. Yeah, it was a tough decision, but I think it been made probably a few weeks before. I think the playoffs was probably put everyone on hold because everyone knew, well, we're really close here. So we're only a few games away from actually getting promoted, and that would be like crazy. And I think everyone did focus and went about their work properly, because I don't think we didn't deserve against United, we didn't deserve to lose. I think at East End especially, we should have won the game there, and if we're totally chancing Tannadice, you go through. Livingston, weirdly, Livingston that season, I think we were the only team that didn't lose them or something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Speaking to some of the lads after that, they didn't want to play us. They were desperate to play United because we'd beaten them home and away. I think they didn't. So it just shows you that, like, if we'd won that game, then where'd you go? You're on the right, because we beat Livy, you go play a Thistle team that had no confidence, and it's like, but I mean, that's all. That never happened. But it was a good season. It was a tough end of the season, and it was just decisions to be made then.
Yeah. So going back, like your first spell, you made 55 appearances, and then that spell you made 43. So how do you reflect back on your two spells at Dunfermline?
I think it's all, to be fair, it's all positive. Like I say, it was turbulent and a roller coaster and all those different words, but it was more about, when you look back, like I say, it's about the people that you meet along the way and the friends you make and the relationships you build. And I couldn't have asked for any better. I mean, the way I, like speaking with family is how I know how good the club was. My mum and dad hold that club in such high esteem, and they always say, "Oh, we loved them for." Like that was like, they loved growing up, and they'd meet all these people, the same faces. Archie, when he was obviously people like that too, would, and that means a lot, because it was like, it wasn't just me that was there. My whole family were treated the same as well, and everything. They loved it to this day. They love it. Like, if they were up this way, they'd go to a game just to go back and see it. So, and especially when you go through all that kind of stuff, you build a real bond with everyone involved. So that'll never, that'll last years and years and years and years and years. Like when I went back the other week, you see all the same faces, and you see the same fans outside, and you know what their kids called and whatever, and this kind of stuff. Like, you wouldn't get that anywhere else after, so
yeah, brilliant.
It's an amazing place. Like,
perfect, mate. What I was going to ask you is, who's the best player you think you played with at Dunfermline?
Wow. There's a few different ones. I'm trying to think who the best one would be. I mean, there's obvious ones, like when Joe was on it. Jojo was brilliant. Higgy. Dean Shields, to be fair, wasn't there long, but what a footballer he is. To do that with class. One eye as well is like, I can't get my head around that. Mm-hmm. How he was incredible. I don't know who was the best. Yeah. Tell you, one of the ones that was unbelievable for me to play with was Paul
Gallagher. Yeah.
Like, for a young centre back who hadn't really played, to have Gal playing behind you, it's like easy. Like, he was brilliant for me.
Was he constantly talking to you and like telling you, like, do this?
Yeah,
do that?
He was like that. To be fair, so was Dowser, Andy Dowie. He was great to play with, but Gal just had a real way about him. And the thing is, with Gal, you knew, like, when you get all this, the keepers coming, they might come and punch you, might do whatever. Gal told you what he was doing before the game. Like, he's like, I'm not going to come for stuff, or I'll come and do you. And you knew. So when the situation arose, you knew it was happening, so you just dealt with it. Whereas other keepers would be like coming flying out, not coming and shouting and going back the line and all. But Gal was just brilliant, calm head, like so reliable, great guy, great, to pick his brain. So yeah, I'd probably say Gal's up there actually.
Brilliant, mate. Superb. Any funny dressing room stories that you can tell? Anything that springs to mind?
I mean, I don't know if people probably know that. I remember we played St Mirren on the telly on the Friday night, my second time, and it was all week. I think it must have been Joe actually, but
I know exactly what you're going to say here.
Told Murdo he was getting it.
I got the blame for this, and it was nothing to do with me.
It was unbelievable. Oh, the whole week had him going. They wanted to do the punditry, and then to be fair, the BT Sport they got him on in the end. He did all right.
He did, yeah.
But that was hilarious because just purely because it went on for a week, and he came in his best clobber, and Murdo's clobber is shocking. And he came in his best, expecting to be on the telly, and the BT Sport didn't have a clue what was going on. But to be fair, that was a good one. That was
so basically for the fans who don't know what happened here, Joe was texting Sean, wasn't he, pretending to be a producer from BT Sport all week.
Yeah, all week. Yeah. And I think actually Joe might have spoke to someone at BT just to let them know like what was going on, just in case it went a bit like Murdo really wasn't happy, or he just strolled onto set and they were like, "What's going on here?" Because he had that interview, just walk on. So it went on and on all week, and couldn't hold it in. Everyone knew apart from him because he was injured at the time. He had quite a bad injury, I think, and he got the Friday night, played St Mirren, and he turned up, and the lads kind of told him, and I've never seen someone's face drop. It was so funny. To be fair, he was heartbroken because he'd been working himself up this whole week and going to telly. He'd probably been rehearsing in front of the mirror and everything. And like I say, to be fair to BT Sport, they got him on for 5 minutes. And I think they told everyone to telly, didn't they?
They did,
He's done a bit, but we'll get him on and whatever. So that was a funny one because there's so much went into it. It was hilarious.
Class. Yeah, that was class. I was going to ask you about any Lorenzo's stories, but I think we'll leave that one for another podcast.
And how long you got?
Right, we'll move on to Ross County.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant. So you leave the club in May 2018 and you go up to Ross County. You have a really successful time there, don't you? You win a championship and the Challenge Cup in your first season.
Yeah, no, it was a strange one. It was I was literally about to sign for a club. Or it's it's kind of agreed, but back home. And Roy McGregor rang and he's like, "Look, come up." And the manager, so I was on holiday and they were ringing. And I was like, "I'll go up." And so I drove all the way up the A9, up Camel Trek, and up I went. Met the manager, met the chairman, everything, all the managers, there was two of them at the time. And had a really good feeling. I think I'd been up there once with United. But I don't know, people who haven't been up, facilities-wise, county facilities are unbelievable for where they are and what they've got. And it's one of them was a bit like Dunfermline. When you walked in, you just got a good feeling. And I think I'd go off at a lot, like that kind of intuitive stuff. I had a good feeling about the club and what was going to happen. So I ended up signing, and they signed, obviously Deck had signed as well, actually previous to me going up. And then it signed a few other lads from down the road at the same time. I think there was a bit of a rebuild job going on there after relegation, and they had a lot of all the big hitters. They'd all been shipped out, so a lot of new lads came in. But it was a brilliant change room, some brilliant lads. A few others I'd played before, like Billy Mackay I'd played with before, and people like that. But it's just a nice place. It's a nice place to be and play a football. I know it's a bit of a trek, but Inverness itself, it's a beautiful place. You focus on your football. It's great for families, the environment, the club. Everyone's so friendly. There's a lot of similarities between Dunfermline and Ross County actually in that regard. But yeah, we hit the ground running. Did well in the Challenge Club. I think we won the group that pre-season. I still don't understand why they do that, but the pre-season kind of League Cup did well, and then we did really well in the league. So we're flying along. And then ruptured one of the tendons in my hamstring, and that was me done for the rest of the season. So it was a great start to the campaign. It was brilliant to win the league, but it was a bit of a weird one because although I'd played, I don't know how many games it was, I was playing pretty much every week at the start of it. at the end when you actually picked the trophy up and stuff, I wasn't really involved as much. It was a bit of a weird one for me, but it was a great season, and obviously winning the cup as well, and back into the SPL, and then back up, which was great to bring the club up. And it was the second season was a tough one, and obviously COVID hit, so it was like there was just so much going on when we were up there. But yeah, it was a really good time, and we had some really good friends up there. I suppose apart from them, it's the longest spell I've had at a football club as well, so that says a lot to what I thought of the place. And
yeah, what was it like playing football during that COVID time?
That was weird. It was surreal. Yeah, that's probably one thing I probably should have, when I moved back to England off the back of county, I should have probably stayed in Scotland and played full time, I think, and played another season when there was fans in. Because when I finished, there was no fans still in. That last season I played in Scotland, and it was weird. Like most of the big grounds, like when it beat Celtic at Celtic Park in the Scottish Cup, and it was like not a pin drop. Like it was weird. Like it was a amazing achievement for the club of our size and all that kind of stuff. And but there's no one there, and we're turning up in like a convoy of like 15 minibuses because you couldn't all set the coach and all the masks, and you couldn't actually walk into the stadium unless had the heat gun, and your temperature was a certain temperature, and you had all like the COVID forms. And every day for training there was they were doing all the swabs before you're allowed in the ground. So like they had like a drive through testing station before you're allowed it. It was weird, but we're also very lucky because a lot of other people at the time couldn't work and couldn't leave the house, and we were like granted permission to go and train, and stuff that people couldn't do, like socialize. Like it wasn't really social because you had to go back in your car and go home, but on the training pitch and stuff there was a bit of normality, and it's stuff that other people were struggling so much with at the time was they didn't have that normality. So we were so lucky even to travel out. I think we were the only people that could leave the Highlands at one point, us in Inverness, to get down. And actually did the championship, don't even know the championship started, I can't remember. But no one else was allowed out. Like you had to stay close to home. We were like going down into Glasgow and all these places, and so yeah, it was really, really weird. But like I say, we're really lucky, I think, because a lot of people had it a lot harder than we did. So football kind of helped a lot of lads, actually, especially the ones that were living alone and didn't have their families and stuff. Like it was good that they had that ability to go and train with other people and actually speak to people rather than being stuck in their flat or their house on their own, which would have been tough again.
Yeah, it was a really strange time. Yeah,
it was weird. But then again, the Highlands is some place to be when we were lucky. Like everyone else in lockdown, in the first lockdown, we didn't have a lockdown in the Highlands. So we were off. We could go like for a coffee or for a meal or whatever, as long as it was socially distanced, and everyone else was stuck in the house. So we were really lucky.
Yeah,
really, really lucky.
I don't know if it was round about this time, but you leave Ross County in May 2021, and Greg Shields recently, I was speaking to Greg, and he said him and Stevie Crawford were keen to take you back to Dunfermline again. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I'd spoken to them all, spoke to Shem and everything.
So how close was that to happening again? Really
close. Really, well, that in hindsight, that's what I mean, but that's what I should have done is gone back.
Mm-hmm.
The opportunity I had down the road was brilliant. Like it was a bit of a transitional role, and I would be playing and working and developing, because I mean, like football's football, but it's not like I've gonna make millions where I can just live off it. Like, and it was like on paper, it was perfect. I was finally moving home, and all that kind of stuff. But then, it didn't pan out that way. Like it was a great experience. Again, look, don't get us wrong, it was a great experience, but I should have, even if it was one more season, I should have just signed. Could have. There was other places, but as soon as like Ross and I rang up about it, I was like, well, it's obviously I'm going to go to Dunfermline. Like, I'm not going to go anywhere else. That would have been ideal. But I kind of, look at the long game and be every good opportunity I wouldn't have got as well. I was kind of what I should have done. I should have gone back that season and kind of played with the fans back in and all that kind of stuff. It would have been pretty special.
Yeah, but you go down to Morpeth Town. You kind of mentioned it there, so you start working on the non-football side. So tell us a little bit about what that role involved.
It turned out to involve everything, to be fair. It was meant to be like a bit of a sporting director role and helping with like, structure and recruitment and the playing staff and budgets and all that kind of stuff. But it turned out to be like all sorts, like logistics and community projects and all sorts of stuff. So like, I mean, I've got like an affiliation with the club anyway, since I was there like just before I came up to Scotland the first time. So I know the owner really well. And they were kind of keen to kind of kick on and go up through the leagues a bit. So there was a lot of football league experience there, to be fair. There's lads I'd played with at Newcastle and stuff. And but like anything, it didn't really pan out that way, which was probably a good thing. Would expect them to go and, up the budget and bring X, Y, and Z kind of players in, but it became very apparent that it was the opposite. It was more of a cut the budget and let's start, trimming it down and make it more sustainable, which probably for me that's been more beneficial, to be totally honest with you. So it was enjoyable. It was intense because I was there like 9 to 5, and then I trained Tuesday, Thursday, and then the away games in that league. Although it's one below the conference, but like miles away to travel. Like, I wasn't used to that. Even a county, like you travel to Glasgow and stuff, but it's only like 3 hours. And you've got like a pre-match meal at a hotel. But like we were stopping, the lads were stopping at services and getting like a sausage roll from Greg's, and I was like, what is going on? So we're trying to like professionalize it a little bit more and stuff like that. But it was decent, but it was just like a slog in the end, and it wasn't quite what it was built up to be. And I think my wife wanted to kind of move back up because it wasn't ideal for her either, because I was never there like training twice a week. Then I was going off scouting and had meetings, and because a lot of the clubs are part-time at that level, you couldn't go for a meeting through the day unless you were going to one of the big clubs to try and get a loan. So like it was like a 24/7 role, and she was working but didn't really have her friends and family there, so it was tough for her. And then as soon as my daughter was on the way, we'd made the decision like end of the season we're going to move back and see what happens. So but it was good. I had like a couple of really good cup runs and the club's first ever loans and stuff, and there was a lot of good work going on, but I had to weigh it all up, and coming back up was definitely the best thing for us. To be fair, it's turned out that way as well. It's been nice being back up and spending time with family and all that kind of stuff. So
right, mate.
Yeah, it's been a funny old journey.
Brilliant. So what are you up to now?
Not a lot. Not a lot, to be fair. I was going to keep playing, start the season, and I went and trained with a couple of people and played, and I just knew like I'm not in it now. I think I didn't really want to play. If I was going to keep playing it based on the wrong reasons, and I always knew that I didn't want to do that, so kind of stepped away from the playing. But at the minute, I'm just kind of being a dad.
Brilliant,
and doing little bits and pieces here and there. So it's been nice having time. I think it's like I say, like you probably take it for granted, but being able to like do stuff with the family pretty much every day, especially having the weekends back, it's been pretty special doing stuff, especially when my daughter's only like 5 months old, 4 months old. So I've seen her like every minute of her life so far. Really special. So I'm just kind of working away, trying to kind of put something in place which is more sustainable and stuff. But no, it's good. We're in a good place at the minute. It's like I say, it's nice being back. It's been nice getting out a few games here and there and seeing some familiar faces.
Yeah, nice one, mate. Just a few questions to kind of round up your career in the game. So, what's been the most surreal moment, would you say, of your career?
I think one of the big ones was walking out with Hampden for the cup final. Was like, that was amazing. Like, and because you're playing against one of the old firm, like jumping. Like, I don't even remember Dundee United fans being there weirdly, because it was like just Celtic fans everywhere. And I know there was probably
Probably about
like 20,000 United fans or whatever there. But yeah. But like it was just crazy. Like I remember, like in the game when like you're humming the songs, because you knew some of the songs, like the Celtic songs or whatever. Like because it's that loud and it's weird. It was like a weird experience. But that was special. Like especially having, I don't know, like I think 2 coach loads of mates came up from Newcastle. There was like 80 of them in the stand and all that, and all my family and all that stuff. So that was special. That was because that's something not everyone gets a chance to to experience. So that was really cool.
Class. What's been the biggest regret of your career, would you say?
Probably not going back to Dunfermline that last time. I know, like, if people go, "Oh, you know, it's a Dunfermline podcast or something," but it is. I've spoken to a family net about this. Like, I should have gone back and played that one more. Like, I finished my career, so to speak, having another bad injury, just when I was playing really well, and then injury strikes, and I was on the up. I probably would have played if I'd had that last injury. I probably would have played for another 4 years, probably full time or something. I felt the fittest I'd ever felt, and then like, you have the surgery, and to be fair, like, what they can do now is, like, a surgeon's incredible. You feel about 10 times, you feel like 10 years younger after they've been in there and done whatever. So really, I probably should have gone and signed, and probably been part, like, going back there now and seeing the buzz around the place, you'd be like, have I missed out on that a little bit? And it would have been nice to kind of finish at Dunfermline as well, come full circle. But probably that. Apart from that, I don't think I really have any other ones. I think, like, the journey I've had is amazing, ups and downs, and the experiences, and the place I've been, the people I've met, and all that kind of stuff has been like, you couldn't write it, basically. So it's been amazing from minute one. So yeah, the only one would be that.
Perfect, mate. I don't know, are you someone who collected memorabilia? And if so, what would be that one special item that you've got?
I don't really have, like, loads of memorabilia. I've got all my shirts. That's good. That's nice to have. I've got all my, like, international ones in Northern Ireland and Baltic Island and Cup final ones and everything. That's cool. But then I did, like, years ago, there's this thing called the Premier Cup. It's like a big tournament. I don't know how old it is, under 15 or something. It's like all the big, like, it's like worldwide. So you have, like, UK based ones, so all, like, the big Premier League clubs, all the win that. Anyway, blocked a shot, but maybe in me, with my head, the kid had kicked it. I mean, nose had kind of come off, and he'd go to the hospital and get sick. So it turned out the Manchester United goalkeeping coach took me to the hospital. And so I had it all stitched on the way back, and he was like, "Oh, there's a couple of tops at the back there. So just take one with you." So I've, like, picked this top up, and it was like a Paul Scholes Champions League top.
Wow.
That he'd won, like, against Fenerbahce or something on the Wednesday night. This was on a Friday. So that's one thing. It's pretty cool because it wasn't like the whole story behind it and how I just ended up in the keeper coach's car, because I just had my nose stitched back on, and then he's like, "Just take one of those tops," and it was like Paul Scholes one. But to be fair, I gave that one on his son's, stupidly, because he's a big fan, so I gifted him it. So he's got it in his house now. It's in a better place. Like, I'm not a Man United fan, I mean, I don't like United. But that was a pretty cool bit of memorabilia that I used to have anyway. That's all my tops. It's nice to look back at them, actually.
Yeah, nice.
A lot of them, especially, they're all signed by, you get them all signed by the lads at the end of the season, so there's some really cool ones.
Nice one. Who's been your toughest opponent, would you say?
I think that even that, like, that first season at Dunfermline, we used to play Morton, like, they were just, like, big and horrible, and, like, the Martin Hardys and all these people, they were just, like, knew the game inside out, like, old school. Those kind of players that season were tough. But then you've got, like, so many, like, like Odson and Ward and people like that who, like, were just, like, levels above. Like, you were just like, yeah, probably shouldn't be playing against him. Like, he's like, you can play Premier League and play for France and all that kind of stuff. Trying to think of, like, the best one would have played against. But played against Eden Hazard, actually, when he was playing with Belgium. That was a joke. He just kind of ran the show. Like, and we might as well not have been playing. He just played his own game, so he was probably one of them. Yeah, there's so many tough ones, to be fair. Like Lyndon Dykes, to be fair. Lyndon Dykes was tough to play against. I can see why he's playing where he's playing. He was, like, even when he was at Queen's, he was decent, and then he went to Livy, and yeah, he was, and it was always like, it was a good one, because I kind of enjoyed all that physical side of it, and so did he, so it was always a good battle. So yeah, no, there was a few on there. I could really say one in particular who was like the toughest. There's been
some
a lot
good
of
players there, though.
There's ones for different reasons. Yeah, like first ever reserve game, played Man United when I was like 15. and Alan Smith was coming back from an ankle injury, and he just took the mick out of us for 90 minutes, like threw me about the pitch, or like played against us as if like he was playing, and like I was the kind of player he was. Weirdly, I then played with him at Newcastle when he signed, and spent a bit of time with him when we had different operations at the same place and all this stuff. Like, great blow, but like he just played every game, no matter the level or who against, as if it was like his last game. Like, amazing. So that was a real baptism of fire, that one.
Brilliant, mate. Who's been your best teammate? Would you say who's your best mate in football?
There's a few good ones in there from different clubs. There's some good like people like Keith Watson, who's now at Raith. So I played with Keith at United, and then again at up at Ross County, and we're like the same age and all that stuff. And our partners are really close as well. So Keithy's up there. Even like Alex Whittle and people like that. You know what I mean? You can't, like, these years you spend living with people and stuff, like you build up strong bonds. So those two are quite big ones. A lot of the lads, to be fair, who were at Ross County, we had really good change room up there because everyone's up in the Highlands together. You spend like an outside of training, you're together all the time, and all the families and the kids and the wives are all together. So a lot of those lads, Billy Mackay's people that we're really close with, who we still speak to all the time. So there's so many. Like, I don't think I've got the same. I don't think there's like one in particular. Like, there's loads, and you come across each other's paths like weirdly at different points for different things. Especially when you get older, people might give you a ring for a bit of advice, or maybe give you a ring for like a contact or whatever. So like, it's mad how you might not speak to someone for a while and they get in touch and it kind of rekindles a bit. So that's happened recently with a few people, which has been amazing. But definitely Keithy Watson's up there.
Nice one. Just to finish up, so over 200 appearances in football, how do you reflect back on your career?
Like I say, I think a bit one is about, like, as a career just being roller coaster. I think, like I say, there's only the regret would be not probably going back to Dunfermline, and I suppose the only thing that always each year is different injuries. I don't think many people will have had the amount of operations and injuries and stuff that I've had, which has kind of curtailed certain things along the way that have come to fruition, which is kind of annoying. But then I suppose the flip side of that is having all that chucked in as well. I've had a good career, because a lot of people might not have kind of gone on that long, having had, hamstring constructions, ankle reconstructions, and this, that, and the other. And so I've done well to kind of stick in there and drag it out. But I wouldn't change it for the world, especially now about football. There's so many things that you can, that are relatable. Not like a normal workplace, but the situations that I've experienced, that when I'm asked questions about certain things, I can just jump straight to that experience. Like, now I've dealt with that, or I've seen that, or I've been involved in that. So it's been a great learning curve over the course. Like, so, and so many great memories and so many good times, to be fair. It's a tough career, football, but I wouldn't change it. It was a good ride. Like,
brilliant, mate. Well, it's been great catching up, and I'll see you at the captain's brunch in October. It'll be good to see you again.
I will do, yeah. Looking forward to it. It'll be really good, yeah. Be really, really good. Nice to be, like I say, it's nice to be able to get back now that I've got a weekends on sitting on buses and all that. So, but no, thanks for your time. It was nice to have a chat.
Top man, Callum. Right, I'll catch you soon.
Will do.
Remember to subscribe to Walking Down the Holbeath Road on your favourite podcast platform. Producer of this podcast was Jan Motkiewicz, and music was supplied by Stuart Dusty Miller. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to walking down the Holbeath Road with another former Pa next month.